Hi, I'm Diane McGarry with Drake Arts. With me today are co-host Tom McGarry, face painter Sam Sickorez, and ASL interpreter Guy. Sam is the proud owner and lead artist of Sam's Bewitched face art, which combines her love of painting children and all things sparkly, though she isn't being sparkly today. Love how you look today, sweetheart. For decades, she served as a volunteer face painter for community and school events. During the pandemic, she began to delve more seriously into SFX makeup, experimenting with elaborate designs and bringing several beloved characters to life, well, at least from the neck up. She went on to launch her company in the spring of 2022, giving a nod to her namesake, the main character of the popular sitcom Bewitched. In addition to face painting and glitter tattoos, Sam has also led stage makeup and SFX workshops for high school performers and served as the makeup designer and artist for local theater groups, most notably Sudbury Light Opera Company 2024 production of the Addams Family. And she has taken several classes in personal online through what is this? Kapital Kidventure. Kidvention. You should tell us about that too in Washington, D.C. and the International Face Painting School. Wow. FABA TV and Canvas Alive. When she's not painting faces or playing with glitter, she can be found at her office job where she works as a billing specialist, spending time with her kids and dogs, kayaking, playing board games, reading, performing on stage with local theater groups, or decorating for Halloween, which really is a year-round hobby. Sam has also been at our booth at Drake Old Homes Day, and children just line up for her face painting. Sam, you're delightful there. You're always delightful, and you're very engaging with the children and the parents, and you're very engaging right now. So tell us a little bit about this character you've given yourself.
So I unfortunately have a small eye injury, and it just feels much more comfortable to keep it covered. And as I was preparing today, I went, what am I going to do? Am I going to just make up half my face and throw a bandage on, or? And then I was thinking about it. I'm going, well, can I make a character out of this? And a lot of the things that I do sort of play with have this sort of one eye approach, simply because when I'm making faces myself, if I'm putting in contacts, it's not something I'm terribly good at. So I take so long to put in one contact that I'll do that, and then I'll put the rest of the face on, and then I'm only sort of doing half of the character or something that sort of looks like it's moving across my face. So that's something I tend to do anyway. So I was sort of playing. I'm like, what can I do? And I was thinking about this, which ended up sort of being a combination of Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas, who's sort of a stitched together rag doll, and some of the characters from Coraline with their button eyes.
Mhm.
So that's sort of where I went with it, but it was just an opportunity to have fun and pick up the paints and see where things went. And I appreciated that you were willing to roll with me when I sent you a picture of this particular, is this okay?
Yeah,
Moment.
it makes the interview better.
Yes, it does. It does make it better. It's so wonderful. So, how did you get into face painting in particular? Because you've done a lot of other things.
So I have always enjoyed drawing and painting, even as a child. In fact, I did study music in college, but that was a really hard decision for me, was whether or not I wanted to go in and study music and singing, or if I wanted to go into arts.
Huh.
And so it's always been an important part of my life growing up. And when I was a young teenager, I want to say I was probably 13 or 14, I started doing volunteer face painting at my town's parish at their yearly summer bazaar. So, that was just, it was fun. It was something I liked doing. And then I kept kind of coming back to that throughout the years. I spent many years as an early childhood educator. So oftentimes I would bring in face paints and do that for the kids in the preschools or at different fairs and things. So that it always sort of was part of my background, but just at a much, much, much smaller scale.
So you said 13, 14. That's like the beginning of
Yes,
teenagers. And you did a lot of art before that. It just different
yes.
types.
Just a lot of drawing primarily. I did a lot of drawing. I did some painting. One of my paintings in fifth grade was chosen for oh goodness, now I can't remember the name of the contest, but it was something at the Wang Center for um children in elementary school who had sent in their submissions. So that was a big deal.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't even one of my better works, but I remember sort of all the fanfare around it and being like, this is really exciting. This is
It
something I
is.
want to do more of. So it definitely stuck with me. And I've just always enjoyed it and cartooning and now I love seeing my youngest who's always got a pen and pencil in one hand and he's always doodling and going, he's mine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, art can transform us, right? And there's so many different types. It's sometimes it's hard for people to narrow down to one specific kind. And if you're still doing stage set designing and stuff, so you're dabbling more.
Yep, absolutely. I do some painting for set pieces and things. My husband and I do a lot of prop work.
Oh yeah.
So for doing shows, we'll create props and all sorts of larger set pieces. I'm not, generally speaking, you should keep me away from power tools. Power tools and sewing machines, just that's not my bag. But he does those things, and then I can paint them and make them look pretty. But we can often work together and say, this is how we're able to construct it. How do we keep it light? How do we keep it durable? How do we keep it safe? Um, and so we're constantly dabbling in that. We make a lot of sort of elaborate uh, props and things for Halloween and decorations and stuff. And we play with different ways to make costumes that are larger than life. We did a production of uh, the Christmas Carol one time, and he and I created the. It's not really a puppet because it was being worn, but it really wasn't a costume because it was 7 feet tall, sitting on his shoulders, and it was the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
Oh wow.
And we had a cage strapped to his shoulders and up with this giant skeleton head that had glowing eyes because we had lit it up. So those are the sorts of things we just really enjoy doing. And our art is something that is a great outlet for creativity and fun. And then also became something that I realized I enjoyed doing out and about and at fairs for kids and making them smile and having the opportunity. I like to say that I do it primarily to help pay for my paint addiction because I always need more paints and I'm always playing with new colors and new types. Um, but it's wonderful for me because I have my Monday through Friday office job and I fight with Excel sheets and but this is my opportunity on the weekends and in the evenings to sort of do something that really sparks joy in my soul and also brings that same level of joy and happiness to others and children and adults alike. I It makes me so happy when an adult comes into my line and says, "Can I have something too?" Absolutely. Take a seat. I love seeing it. I love when everyone plays along. And it's one of those things that's not just for kids because everyone deserves an opportunity to smile and everyone needs a little more sparkle in their life. Although I
Yeah.
always ask, glitter you must consent to because I know some people have very strong feelings. Oh,
Oops. Yes, it's
in
very
fact, I
interesting. I
have
mean,
such strong feelings that they run away and hide, just like that.
you're incredibly respectful to the people as they come through the line and just what would you like? Where are you comfortable? And you don't always ask that directly, right? If you ask somebody where are you comfortable, that's like very hard to answer, but you engage with everyone on a very intimate individual basis, and that's a real gift, Sam. It's a real
Thank
gift.
you. Thank you.
And you're so respectful to everyone. And, at Drake It Old Home Day, we sometimes have lines going down, even when I say we're cutting off here, people sneak in. So, and you are really, you really care about making sure everyone gets a chance and an opportunity. at their and meeting them where they are, which is great. That's a lot of work with boundaries. And you mentioned boundaries before with like, don't let me near power tools. I mean, it I actually happen to love power tools, but I understand, you need to know what you can deal with and what you can't, and what you're good at and what you're not. And those are really important life lessons actually, because they change too over time.
It's true, and it's something that I'm still learning and I'm still growing, and I think that it's important to model learning and growing
Uh,
um, for my family and for myself, and to remind myself that things don't always go the way that you expect, and this happens a lot in face painting. It can be the same design you have painted 40 times that day, and then suddenly you pick up a paintbrush and your hand goes, "I've never touched a paintbrush before." And just things don't necessarily, the paint doesn't flow the way you expect, or the child in your chair sneezes. And it's always important in those moments to go, you
Mm,
know what? This is in my wheelhouse, and this
mm,
is okay. And this is still going to come out wonderful, and they're still going to love it.
yeah.
Because if you let yourself kind of get stuck in this mindset of it's not good enough, you'll never be happy. And that's been a very difficult thing for me, because I've always been sort of a perfectionist at heart. I have to be better, I have to be faster, you know I'm always holding myself to a very high standard. And face painting has kind of allowed me to, I don't want to say lower my standards, because that's absolutely not what I'm doing, but think more about the whole process than the finished product. Because, like you said, it's not just about the art, it's about making the person in your chair feel like they are the most important in the world person in the world for those few minutes, and making sure that they're heard and they're enjoying themselves. And for some kids, they wait very patiently in that line, they climb up into that big tall chair, and suddenly, what's going on? This person who I've never met before is coming at my face with a brush. And you can kind of see that on their faces, and then you pull it back and you talk to them a moment, and maybe they need a painting on their arm. Maybe they need a parent to hold up a mirror for them so that they can see what's happening in real time. Um, and, for me, having been a teacher and having a child who is um, on the autism spectrum, being aware that everybody has different levels of comfort around their body is so important. Because if they're not enjoying themselves, it could be the most fabulous art you've ever created, but if they didn't have fun,
Mm,
that wasn't a successful experience for them.
yeah.
And
mm.
uh, sometimes I feel it in my heart when parents are like, "Well, we waited this whole time, but now they're
Oh,
crying and you're not going to paint them." I understand, and I hear your frustration, but if they don't want me to paint them and they've changed their minds, I'm going to listen to them and let them honor that. And I've got my little bags of tricks and the things that you pull out and the things you try to make them feel more comfortable in the different offers. And then I can look at the parents and say, "I can paint you instead." And maybe that'll bring them around. And if nothing else, you look fabulous and you didn't just wait in line for nothing.
mm.
But it does happen because kids are unpredictable, but
Sure.
they're also they're also unfiltered joy.
Yes, yes. And I've seen you put paint on people's hands or arms instead of their face because they feel less vulnerable and they can watch you more easily when you do that. And it's just as fun,
Absolutely.
it's as
Absolutely.
fun. Mom and their
So,
kids all having the same painting on themselves. I mean, it's
yeah.
wonderful. It's
So
wonderful.
this reminds me of the Japanese idea of kintsugi, I think it is. So if a pot is broken and you glue it back together, but you put like gold or silver in whatever glue or resin they use, then you really notice the places where it was broken, but that becomes part of the art and it looks cool. So I really like that anyway.
Yeah, it's a
That's what we're doing here, right?
right.
Right?
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
broken my
absolutely.
eye, but now we're making it a feature.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, speaking of a feature, we're going to put up this beautiful painting that you do that you now have as your logo, which I absolutely adore. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
you.
Yes. How did you come up with the idea of having yourself part of the landscape?
Mm.
So this was actually this piece was featured and selected as a winner for the Craze FX line of face paint. They had a monthly contest, and their theme this month was rainforest.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was the inspiration here. And this was actually the first time I had tried a look of this nature. I had seen other artists do things like this, and there is sort of this trend if you're watching on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and TikTok, there are lots of face painters out there sort of doing these elaborate looks on themselves. So I had seen folks do night skies and these really sort of extensive pieces where they themselves were the canvas. And I wanted to give that a try. So I thought that hearing that rainforest was the theme, this would be a great opportunity to give that an opportunity, to give that a bit of an experimentation, and just sort of building it out from the base and really treating it like a painting where then the eye gets brought down to the little frog who I believe I dubbed her name is Gertrude.
Oh, I
I
love
don't know
her.
why, but that's her name. So Gertrude sort of being that focal point as opposed to my face, because
Mm.
oftentimes the leaning or the standard um, teaching in face painting is that you have sort of focal points in very specific points in your face, and that's where you want to draw the eye. So
Oh,
bringing it down to the collarbone instead and sort of carrying the eye in that direction was a departure for me. But I really loved this piece.
it's
Um,
gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's
thank
gorgeous. And
you.
I actually like that the center isn't your face because you've used yourself as a canvas,
Mm.
and the water and the waterfall is so incredibly beautiful and stimulating.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that one was about 2.5 hours.
Oh.
Well, here's another one of you being the canvas for yourself. And again, it's not drawing you to your face, it's drawing you to these beautiful flowers that you have.
Thank you. This one was a lot of fun for me because I had gotten into this nice habit, or I had a technique, I should say. I had a technique for flowers and roses it was serving me well, and it was something I was using a lot on the job. And I was part of a group online called Inspiration to Paint. And every day they would give you a prompt, and sometimes the prompt was
Oh.
practice your teardrops and do 50 teardrops, or sometimes it was do a penguin. um, and they would sort of really have the gambit, what did you want to be when you grow up? That's your prompt. And this one was oversized flowers.
Oh, wow.
And I went, okay, and I grabbed one of the largest brushes I had, and something that we use a lot in face painting, they're called one strokes. And they're literally these cakes that have multiple colors on one piece of product, on one product, so that when you're loading up your brush, you have lots of different colors at once, and that makes things go faster. But it gives you a lot of flexibility too with creating really elaborate looks. And this one, I was able to take one of those one strokes and just flip my brush.
Mhm.
So these are the same colors of the flowers. They're just flipped and
Wow,
they're in the inverse.
Oh. Oh.
that's really neat. That's very neat.
So
Thank
this
you.
is all done with one paintbrush and one, whatever you call it, tablet of one stroke?
Not all of them, but all the big flowers were.
Oh,
There's
wow.
And probably
one
the
big
leaves too.
paintbrush and one stroke. Yeah, one stroke cake, I should say. It's a paint
Okay.
cake.
Hmm.
That's the word I keep looking for, but I guess
Uh.
I'm hungry and I don't want to say that because I'm
Well, here's a different type of painting that you've done. So that
so
I wanted people just not just to see that you're do gorgeous, beautiful themes, but also the Halloween type of stuff.
which I have a lot of fun with. And I have to give credit, this design is not my design. The other designs are my own iteration, and I came up with those. But this was a tutorial, sort of when I was learning. I followed a lot of tutorials online from other artists to get a sense of how to use the product, use the paints, understand my facial structure better, and how to emphasize those elements. So this was actually a walkthrough by Maron, which is specifically one of the leading face paint companies and one that I use quite a bit. I think it's important to note, I'm just going to take this opportunity because there are so many people online doing these sorts of things, that being aware of the brand of face paint you use and making sure that you're using safe face paint, either on yourself or on somebody else, is really, really crucial. And you can't trust everything that's being sold online or on Amazon.
Yeah.
So that's one of those first things that I always like to let people know is safe face paint is crucial, because this is your skin. It's attached to you. You don't want to make it angry. So just making sure that you do your research and you work with reputable, FDA approved, safe cosmetic grade face paints is very, very crucial.
Yeah, and actually some of those safety ideas are being rolled back too, so we really have to be careful and aware, very aware.
That's true. That's true, yeah. Absolutely.
Here's somebody who's very happy with what you've done, and it's not mistakes at all.
I have to give him credit for this. This is my youngest, and he is actually not a fan of being painted. You would think that as a parent of two, I would have ample opportunities to practice on my own kids. Nope. One's too old and too cool, and this one doesn't like the sensation of paint on his face. But he will let me if he feels strongly enough about an idea. And this was his idea. This is a cartoon character from an internet cartoon called Homestar Runner. And it is Trogdor the Burninator. And it's supposed to be a very silly, very cartoony dragon. And he has one beefy arm. So Donovan told me, he said, Mama, I want to be Trogdor, but I want my arm to be Trogdor's one beefy arm. So we gave him the muscles on that arm and he did that pose. So this is not my design. I just did the art. The design is all Donovan's. And this is my little artist to be right here.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. You really met him where he is, and that's, of course he's your child, so it's easier to do, but it isn't always easier to meet your children, honestly. Sometimes they throw weird things in the mix. They do.
One of the photos that I may have shared, but it's of him in a skull face paint because he was going as the Grim Reaper. And I think that was the first time he asked me to paint him. And I had to be very calm about it. I'm like, okay, sure, if that's what you'd like. And I'm inside jumping up and down going,
I know, it's funny, isn't it? We have to be so careful. It's just funny. Yeah.
I don't want to scare him off.
Is that the one that you're talking about?
No, that's actually not the one that I'm talking
Sorry.
about, although it is a very similar design. But oh my gosh, this little guy, he was so funny because I had two ideas on my idea board. Oftentimes, if I'm at an event, I have idea words on a board with little illustrations because, young children can't necessarily read. So it'll say the word butterfly and there'll be a little clip art of a butterfly. And oftentimes, not always, that's how I help people think about what they want to be. I'm happy to take special requests. I'm also, depending on the line, I might have to say something like, you know what, I don't know that particular Pokemon. I know there are very many now, and there's a lot of people waiting, so maybe we can't do that one today, but let's talk about some other options that you would like instead. And this child came up, and I had skull and flames on my board. and he could not decide between the two. And I leaned on him. I
Oh.
said, "Do you want me to do both?" And he just lit up. He goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, we can make you a skull and we can have fire coming out of the top." And you would have thought that I had just handed him a lottery ticket. He was
But
just
you did.
so
You did.
excited.
That's so great.
Mm.
Yeah.
And sometimes kids will ask, they'll say, "I can't decide between A and B." And I have such fun
Mm.
taking those ideas and
Mm.
putting them together and finding a way to make them work.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it is neat. There's two more. I had a whole bunch list, but this is what happens, right? This is what happens in life. Um, I want to show one more of your being scary.
Okay.
Here we go.
Mm.
There you are being scary.
I really like this. This was one of the ones that happened during the pandemic. So,
Ah.
oh, as you
Mm.
as you mentioned when you were reading my bio, that's sort of what started all of this. Was during
Mm.
the pandemic, I would bring my paints into my room and vanish for a couple of hours and start doing some of these elaborate looks. And this is
Mm.
another great example of I spent 40 minutes putting one of those contacts in and went, "Well, I don't want to spend another 40 minutes trying to get the other one in. So can I find a way to make this look work with one eye in
Mm.
the contact?" So this one was one of my favorites for several reasons, but that optical illusion of the extended mouth down
Mm.
from the neck and using the actual line where my lips split as that top line where the teeth are, so
Yeah.
that it's not as obvious where the change happens. That was one that I really enjoyed and has won me a couple of
Oh.
costume contests on, like, at my work for, you would send in your remote photos of
Oh, when you sent this in
costumes. Hmm?
and you
Yeah.
sent it. Oh gosh, that's wonderful.
So I sent
Mm.
it in at work and they're going, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's my costume."
Wow, that's so
Wow.
that's so funny. Well, this has been delightful, Sam. Thank
Mm.
you so much
Mm.
for taking the time to talk with us. And please, everyone, drop by our table at Trinket Old Home Day for some free face painting. And also join us for Sam's Art Gallery during our September Arts Saturday, where you can see more of her wonderful designs. We'd also, oh my goodness, I forgot to bring this up. So Tom, you're gonna have to add this. We'd also like to thank all of our sponsors for making all this and all of our programs possible. Please consider becoming a sponsor yourself. Just go to drakeatarts.com/donate. For more information about Drake at Arts Saturdays and other programs that we put together, please visit our website at drakeatarts.com or email us at drakeatarts@gmail.com. This and all our programs are archived on the Drake at Arts YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@drakeatarts.